Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, the bit under weather, Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, how you doing over there? Other than you're muted. It's the last show of the year, folks, and we still haven't figured out the mute button. What's up, man?
Yeah, you hit it right. Still a little under the weather, but trying to push through here. I got a day and a half to get feeling better.
Yeah.
So doing everything I can to pump the fluids, tea, medicine, got to feel better starting in a day and a half. So
yeah, there is gunk going all over the valley, that's for sure. I got hit with it a bit at the end of last week, missed work and bowling Thursday and Friday, was able to luckily bounce back for Christmas. I'm hoping that means that I will be 100% for the Avista tournament. I missed a lot of it last year with a migraine and all this other stuff I was going through. And luckily, Brian Danner was there to help us out. I know you are with some backup just in case as well, but hopefully you are able to make it through as well. Again, it's one of our favorite times of the year. A lot to look forward to, a lot of basketball going over at the P1FCU Activity Center starting on Thursday. We'll talk about that with a special guest here shortly. Run down the rest of the show as there's going to be a ton of NFL talk. Week 16 is in the books. It was the semifinals for a lot of fantasy football leagues, and the NFL spread everything out. So there was just so much action going on for multiple days, made people stress it out as long as possible. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the crazy action, who's in, who's out, and all the crazy playoff races. There's a new number one in our power rankings that you can check out on the Facebook page. Just search R&R Sports Report, hopefully where you are watching this now. But if you're watching on YouTube or my Twitter page, you can go check that out. Over there, again, we'll talk a ton of the NFL. We'll also hit on those stupid college bowl games that everyone, I got on here last week and went, oh my God, there's so many. This week, it feels like there's double, Robert. Were you making some up? Are these real bowl games?
No, not making them up at all. I've had both the games on, early game on today. Minnesota's freshman running back had a huge game, and right now Texas State is handling Rice. So I love watching all of them, but here lately it's just been highlights. But hopefully today and tomorrow get a lot of football in.
Luckily, I am defeating 97% of people that made their picks on ESPN. I'm crushing it. We won't talk about the NFL picks. Those are non-important, but at least I'm getting the college picks right, especially for games that I'm not watching at all. Family went and bowled a little bit today, and Orchard Lanes had the first game on, and that was the most of any bowl game I've watched this year, just in the background. So we'll talk about that. Obviously, there was another big signing for a certain Los Angeles Dodger team that happened over the week. I'm bumming about that one, and we'll hit on a few other things in the year, hopefully with a couple of highlights. But right now, let's go ahead and bring on our special guest. I believe this is the fourth straight year that we have been lucky enough to get the man on before the Avista Holiday Tournament. That is Mr. Mike Tatko. Mike, how you doing?
Merry Christmas, you guys. I hope you had a good one. And Robert, we're with you, man. We need your voice.
We're gonna do all I can do to make sure I am 100% or at least 90% on Thursday. So, Mike, before we drop in and talk all things Avista, like Randy said, this is our big time of year. I've had the privilege to talk power rankings for your Las Vegas Raiders. Sir, do your Raiders make the playoffs with the schedule they have remaining? They will be on the road to Indianapolis. Randy and I have a friend that'll be back at the game. She is already getting ready to travel back to watch the game. And then they are at home hosting Denver. Is there a chance that your team sneaks in?
Well, I think your guys' teams both won this weekend too, and it was a great Christmas for me. On my way up here, I thought about wearing my Raider pullover, which I did wear one year, but then I wanted to wear the Avista Holiday Basketball Tournament shirt. So to answer your question, it's kind of interesting because we need people like Cincinnati to lose if we can beat the Colts and Denver so that we can sneak into that wild card spot. But on the other hand, if Cincinnati beats the Chiefs and then the Chargers beat the Chiefs and we win both, we win the division and get a host a game. And so it's kind of like, what do you hope for? But you know how this saying goes, guys. You just need to take care of your own business. The Colts are good, especially at home on the carpet. But our defense has been really good. And then Denver, it's at our place, although not much of a home field advantage really for Las Vegas at this point. Seems like the guests always have more people. But, it's just the fact that it's December 26th and we're in the conversation. Usually we're out by Thanksgiving. So it's just nice to be part of the conversation.
I mean, it definitely helped that Patrick Mahomes gave you guys more points than your offense was able to put up. Aiden O'Connell does not complete a pass after the first quarter. He doesn't need to. That game was wild. We're going to get to it in about a half hour from now. Week 16 was just nuts. Right? There were so many things where I saw a score or a highlight or watching the game going, yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. Yes, my picks were very much wrong. I was doing everything I could to try to cut the lead into Hagen. That did not work in my favor. But even other than that, there were results I'm going, what? Like the Jets scored over 30 points. What is week 16? But yeah, absolutely. Raiders are very much in contention. The AFC wildcard is getting very log jammed with a lot of teams looking for basically one spot. I think Cleveland and Buffalo, I like their chances to get in. But other than that, it could get really, really messy. I want to get to the Avista Holiday Tournament. I'm just going to ask right off the bat, what was the process to get a team like Downey from California all the way up here to Lewiston to play in this high school tournament?
Yeah, I'll tell you, well, Kevin Driscoll, who is the principal at Lewiston High School, formerly athletic director and a highly successful coach at Kendrick in both football and baseball years ago, has a former player who coaches girls basketball at Downey. You think that people are knocking down the door to play in our tournament. And really, we do have a lot of interest, but sometimes people can't get 3 games or they can't get 3 games in a row or whatever. And so Kevin approached us and said, I may have an opportunity to get a team from out of the area. Would it be okay? And so, yeah, I mean, Nate Harris is the guy's name, and he was a good athlete at Kendrick long ago. And they were interested in coming, both boys and girls varsity. And, we like to have teams, both boys and girls, if we can, from the same school, because then you have a greater following from their school. And so Kevin worked really hard with Nate and made it work. And so that's where the Downey Vikings are in the field.
Well, with Downey coming up, it's a lot of more planning and all that. Can you tell us a little bit? Did they leave today heading up? Are they traveling up today? How are they coming up? And what kind of extra things did we have to do to accommodate the Vikings coming up?
Well, I'll tell you this, that Kevin and Shannon Wilson on the Clarkson side, who are the 2 people who started this tournament long ago, they approached me to be the sponsor. But then, Corey Williams took over for Kevin when Kevin moved into the principal job. And then Doug Henderson is now in the athletic director role at Lewiston. The athletic directors have always worked with hotels in this valley to get some type of a deal, because this is a really slow week for hotels. I mean, unless you're coming into town to maybe to stay with your family and they don't have enough room in their home, then hotels, if you drive by any hotel really this week, and there's not a lot of people. So the hotels have been really good in working with us all 11 years of this tournament in giving us, maybe it's pay for one and get one free, or whatever the deals that Shannon and Doug this year that they struck. And so we were able to accommodate Downey in that regard. They did fly. And so that obviously is an expense there. And so we tried to do what we could do once they hit the ground to not have as many expenses as maybe a team that would drive a bus or something like that. So I'm looking forward to watching them, looking forward to seeing, hopefully they're going to bring a contingent of parents. We hope, I guess it kind of depends, but just looking forward to having someone new, and kudos to Kevin for approaching us with this opportunity.
How exciting is it to you to have teams from 4 different states be represented here in this tournament this year? I know a lot of times it's difficult for teams. Not even talk about Downey and how far they have to travel, but I mean, even talk about Pendleton and the hours they have to drive, or Rocky Mountain coming up from southern Idaho, especially this time of year when weather can definitely be a factor. It looks like we're going to get lucky up here in northern Idaho and not have some rough weather. But how tough is it to kind of find those teams that could have those traveling issues if the weather doesn't go our way?
Yeah, and there are some contingencies that we had to make. Rocky Mountain, for instance, really wanted to come, and their coach is Ivory Miles Williams, who played at Lapway. And then I think he started at the College of Idaho. I'm not sure if it was College of Idaho then or Albertson College, but it's in Caldwell, and now he coaches Rocky Mountain. So obviously he has ties to this area, being from Lapway, so he'll have a lot of family and friends in the facility. They could only come the day of their first game. They couldn't come a day early because of some other conflicts with some of their team, and so they asked if they could play late, and so that's why they're in the final game of the night. So we sit down multiple times a year. We have brackets. Certain things are kind of set. You guys have been there long enough to know, but for the people who maybe are watching for the first time who don't know, we alternate Lewiston and Clarkston. 1 year they play early, 1 year they play late. They never play each other unless it's on the final day, because they play in the Inland Cellular Golden Throne later in January. So if they play in the Avista tournament, great, they play. But if they don't, that's okay, because they're going to play. So this year it's Lewiston's turn to play early. Since Rocky Mountain could not play until late, that's how they got slotted in against Clarkston. And then they're only bringing their boys. And so we are fortunate to get the Richland girls, which is a big school from Richland, obviously the Tri-Cities, to face off with Debbie Sabota's Clarkston girls, hoping against hope that we give Debbie some good competition. And she's done a great job going non-league this year. It's been well documented, the people that Clarkston is playing to try to get better. And so hopefully Richland falls into that category. But to answer your question, there are some logistical things that we kind of have to work through with kind of piecing and puzzling this all together.
One of the other teams that we haven't seen in a while, and I was excited to see, and so much notoriety going around with some awards this year, how the football team is the Kendrick Tigers, and them making an appearance on the boys' side. How exciting is that going to be to watch a Kendrick Tiger team who has started off the season 6-0 facing the Lewiston Bengals right away?
Yeah, we had a spot for a boys team, and we were able to get Kendrick in it. We have a spot for the girls team, which Grangeville, of course, is in it that early game. So you're going to have Lewiston play against two smaller teams as far as classification goes. But, Grangeville girls with Michelle Barger as their coach, they've been to state every year. I can't remember the last time they weren't at state. Kendrick is the defending basketball state champions. I think a lot of people don't get that. They don't remember that. They know of Zane Hobart and the football team winning all these championships and this huge long winning streak, but they don't realize that the Kendrick boys won the state championship in the 1A Division II level last year. So while they're a lot smaller school, they're good. I don't think they've lost this year. Maybe I'm not up to speed on their record, but if nothing else, there's going to be interest, and I think we're going to have good crowds for the early games as well as the late games.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the smaller schools that Kendrick and Grangeville come from. Those are two of the matchups that obviously I'm covering for my other job, but I'm really looking forward to, because it is a huge chance for a school like Grangeville or Kendrick to make a name for themselves even more against basically one of the host teams in Lewiston, who's up there in 5A. And both Lewiston teams are going through a lot of transition, a lot of change. New head coach for the Lewiston girls. Lewiston boys, a second-year head coach, but only 3 seniors on that team. So it is wide open, I think, for the Grangeville girls to come away with a big, if you want to call it an upset there. And Kendrick, like you said, they just won the state title, and they're facing a team in Lewiston who has a really good defense, but they're not super deep. So I could see the Tigers making a big win there. And it works out so well. We had the same thing last year, where in the girls bracket, the championship game was against 2 Class 1A Division I teams. So it was It's what I love about this tournament. You get them from all different classifications, but just the way everything works out, any of these 8 teams can win on both sides.
Yeah, I think the thing we like about it, well, we like a lot of things about it. But we like the fact that it's a bracketed tournament. It's not a classic format, so you don't know who you're going to play or win except for the first day. It's really similar to a state tournament. You get to state, you know where you're playing in the first round, but other than that, you don't know. It depends on how you do and how the other bracket works, and so it's really similar to that. And I just want there to be games that are competitive so that it prepares these teams for postseason. To me, it doesn't matter who wins, but I want there to be good games, because when you get to state, if you're going to win, generally you have to battle through 3 games on consecutive days or nights. And that's really kind of that was the method behind moving this to an 8-team tournament from a 4-team tournament after 2017 is when we expanded. And hopefully, I mean, you'd have to ask coaches, but hopefully it prepares them for state tournament play later.
You bring up the tournament side of it and it being, invite style. And that's exactly what happened with this Downing team. And doing some research about both of these teams so far, for the girls, their first 12 of their 15 games, and then for the boys, their first 12 of 13 games have come from a tournament style. So they have not faced any of their league opponents or even area schools. How do you think that's going to play in with them already having tournament experience?
Well, I think if you looked at all the other teams, certainly some of the teams in this tournament have played back-to-back, maybe a Friday, Saturday. Obviously Clarkston went to Pendleton, and Lewiston went down to that tournament, the Capital Classic. So they have played some back-to-back, but generally you have people playing maybe a Tuesday and then maybe a Friday, and you're not playing back-to-back this early in the season like Downey has. So maybe it's an advantage as far as conditioning and stuff. But again, the goal is to get these kids and coaches and even fans conditioned to what it's going to be like in March when it really comes down to game time. And obviously every one of these teams has the hope of being in a 3-day state tournament to where you do have to play back-to-back-to-back. So, does it give them an advantage? At least they know the drill. But hopefully by the end of this weekend, people will walk away from this tournament saying, okay, if we get there in March, we know somewhat what it's going to be like.
And you brought up Lewiston and Clarkson doing tournaments. Lapway's been in a couple different tournaments, as well as Zach Eastman continues to have that program just on a complete rise, and the domination that they have in Case Why Not and what he has been able to do. That's always a showcase game. Just talk about the attendance that you may predict this year, because it's always a blast. It's always a lot of fun. Hopefully they fix those back stands on the radio side of things. They've had some malfunctions there, so hopefully they can open those up just to allow for more seating. But Lewis and Clarkson always show up for this Avista Holiday Tournament. Lapway shows up in droves, but then you have some teams traveling from a bit farther, obviously Downey and Rocky Mountain. Do you worry that maybe the attendance will be down a little bit, or with the bigger named schools, being showcased, and along with, the 3 I've already mentioned, that you expect people just to show up to watch some really good basketball?
Well, I think a couple reasons. Hopefully people will come to watch Rocky Mountain. One, they're a big school. When we reclassify next fall, they're going to be 6A. They're going to be in the biggest classification in the state of Idaho. Ivory Miles Williams should be a draw, being from Lapway. And they're on the same side of the bracket as Lapway. They would both have to win or lose to play each other, but that could be a draw. A couple of years ago, when they pulled out the upper bleachers on, I think it was the guest side is what I call it, not the side with the benches. That was a huge thing for us because they had never done that before. And then they did that a couple of years ago. Usually those are only open for Golden Throne or maybe a really big Lewis Clark State game. And so the fact that they pulled those out kind of let us know as organizers that maybe we had arrived and that people were coming this year. And thanks to Danny Grubb, but he often watches this. He's our historian, Hall of Famer, all things historian. He has all the stats and the records on this tournament. With the addition of Downey and then Richland and Kenrick, we will have had 24 different teams on both boys and girls side in our 11 years. So not only do we get I think we get good local teams because they're generally good, the teams we bring in from the outside, hopefully are good and competitive. And I'm looking forward to the Richland girls, and I'm certainly looking forward to the Rocky Mountain boys. And like I said, Downey's kind of a wild card, but they're coming all the way. And so we're looking forward to welcoming them and giving them a good Valley welcome and seeing how they participate.
Well, let's take a look really quick, and we'll start off with the girls' schedule on the opening day. We'll talk about game number 1. In that matchup that Randy was talking, the smaller school, the Grangeville Bulldogs taking on the Lewiston Bengals. Right now, Grangeville averaging just over 60 points per game. They're number 2 in their 2A poll so far, 2 of 7 first place votes. At Lewiston Bengals, like we said, new coach there, 4-7, averaging 46 points a game. I myself think this is probably one of the best games to open up the tournament this year.
Yeah, I agree. Julie Fisher, I really like what she's done. I met her one time during the summer before the season started, and just kind of by chance we ran into each other, and so we talked basketball, and I liked her from the beginning. And they're young; they don't have a senior. Randy knows this better than anyone, being the play-by-play man for the Golden Bengals, and they're going to have their growing pains. But again, this is a situation where if Lewiston can get one of those spots to the state tournament from the very tough Inland Empire League. We know it's tough with Coeur d'Alene, Lake City, and Post Falls. But if they could get one of those spots, then they're going to face the 3-day gauntlet of the state tournament. And playing at 9 a.m. That's I don't know that happens anymore in Idaho, because I think they make them in the afternoon and the evening. But the fact that you have to play 3 in a row anywhere is a good thing. So I'm looking forward to Lewiston this year and next year for sure. Michelle Barger wins every year. It doesn't matter whether her daughter is playing. Then one daughter went to LC, and now she's got another daughter on the team. And so she has a great supporting cast. They played Sandpoint in the ICCU arena in Moscow the other day, and it went to overtime, and Sandpoint's the defending state champion in what is now the final year of the 4A. So Michelle, very similar to what Debbie Sabota and probably everyone does, they play up. Because they want to get good at the end. They don't care what their record is. And I think most of the coaches you talk to in this tournament don't care really what their record is. They want to get better this weekend. But I'm with you guys. I think that 9 a.m., I think that opener could be really interesting.
We'll stay in the girls bracket and take a look at game number 3. It's going to be Pendleton and Moscow. Both of those teams have already played Clarkson and Lewiston in some variety. So we've both been exposed to these teams. Right now, Pendleton just under 46 points and Moscow over 49 points a game. This one could be a real interesting game to be the noon.
Yeah, I mean, I think Moscow and Lewiston have played, and I think it was a relatively good game up in Moscow. And Pendleton obviously has seen Clarkston from when they hosted the tournament down there, and so again, this is a situation where these are teams that come every year. They're, Moscow's close. We like Moscow. They travel well. Pendleton brings a good crowd. And I know we want good teams and everything, but from a sponsor standpoint, I want a lot of people there too. And so these people have traditionally brought good crowds. And I think that'll be a very interesting game as well.
Next one, we talked about Downing and them being here, bringing their girls team. It is from a coach that has been in the area, has played in the area, taking on a Lapwai Wildcats team who's 7-1, averaging almost 60 points a game under a new head coach. Some changes out in Lapwai. What do you see in this game?
Well, you've obviously done the research on Downey. I did go to the Max Preps and looked at their roster. I have not seen any film or anything like that, but I have watched Lapwai. They seem to be very similar to at least Grangeville in the situation where they were really good last year, and then they're off to a good start at 7-1 this year. Josh Layton has coached every sport, I think, out there, and he wins in every sport that he coaches, and creates a good culture for the kids out there. And so Nate Harris, obviously played at Kendrick, and so he played against Lapwai, so he knows the history of Lapway and Lapway basketball and how they like to get up and down the court. And I'm sure he's coached his kids on that. And so depending upon the style of basketball that Downey wants to play, they're going to have to put their track shoes on, because that's what everyone does when they play Lapway. It's up and down.
And that is the 3 p.m. game, and final girls game at 6 o'clock. It will be your host, Clarkson Bams, taking on the Bombers of Richland. Richland, a 4-1 start. Debbie Sabota, we talked about it a minute ago, off to a 6-0 start with her group. A few changes, some younger players on the team. This should be a heck of a game to start off the evening.
The last time I saw you, Robert, was at the Clarkston Post Falls doubleheader. I marked that on my calendar as soon as I found the schedule, because Post Falls, an Inland Empire League team from Idaho, they've always been good, it seems like, boys and girls. And I hadn't had the chance to watch Debbie's team or Justin's team on the boys' side. So I went and I sat there, and I marveled at Debbie Sabota's team. They took punch after punch after punch against Post Falls. They were way ahead. Post Falls tied it at 30. Clarkson got ahead. Post Falls tied it going into the fourth. But when it mattered, Clarkson, it just seemed like they made the extra pass on like 3 or 4 extra possessions. And they ended up winning that game, I think, by 5. And it was phenomenal. It was really fun, up and down. They let them play a little bit, which I think is important. And I'm really looking forward to watching Clarkson, not the next 3 days, but throughout the rest of the season. I think they have a chance to really make some noise.
Yeah, they were a good game. And also, for those that don't know, former Lewiston boys coach Jason Ulrich is up coaching as an assistant coach for the Post Fall boys Trojans up there. So
Then you look at the boys bracket, and it starts off again with Lewis, and they take on Kendrick. To me, Mike, this is a matchup that has so many interesting factors to it, not only 5A versus Class 1 D2, but Kendrick likes to run up and down the court. They put up a lot of points, almost 70 points per game, led by Ty Kep, who ended up being the Warrior High School Male Athlete of the Year that got announced just before Christmas. And he's been having a fantastic year as well. Again, you said state champions last year, right now second in the poll with 6 of the 11 first place votes. They've been really good against a Lewiston team that is not the deepest Bengals team we have seen, but they have a ton of fight. What Brooks Malm has done with the Bengals this year with like their defensive ferocity has been fantastic to watch. Again, not the deepest team, but they got a couple of shooters in there. So it's really offense versus defense, small school versus big school. What do you see in that one?
Well, first of all, kudos to Brooks. He's done a great job. And Tim Silflo at Kendrick. They probably snuck up on everybody in basketball last year except themselves. They probably went down to the Boise Valley and thought they could win it. And maybe no one else really gave them much of a chance. And, there were some good people in that 1A Division II tournament last year, and Kendrick comes out on top. They know how to win. They know how to win in every sport. And so I think in tight games, whether it's a tight football game when Zane's coaching, whether it's a tight basketball game when Tim's coaching, teams like that who have been through the wars, they know how to win. And so Kendrick, the closer this game is, the longer it goes, and Kendrick gains confidence in a situation like that. Who knows? Not to say Lewiston can't win a close game, because they have been in some good games, and they have won some good games too. Really interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a crowd-pleasing game, and it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
There have been very few Lewiston games that have been decided with more than a minute left on the clock, that's for sure. Speaking of a team trying to build some confidence, Pendleton has been struggling this year. They're 2-8. They take on Moscow, who's 3-3. They're scheduled for 1:30 p.m. But Pendleton has played at the P1 FCU Activity Center this year. They were supposed to play the Bengals up at LHS. They had a power outage, so what a rough time for them to travel all the way over here and then scramble down to the college. And again, I shout out to George and everyone that was able to put that together in such short notice. But they have played on that gym in the last month. Struggled shooting at first, started to find it. Can they use that as momentum in this tournament and kind of surprise some people?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many people, from Moscow's team played here last year. I know that they have had a few. I like Moscow. I like Josh Urig. I think they have the ingredients to really make some noise in this tournament and in the 4A IEL. They're in the league with Sandpoint and Lakeland, and I like Moscow. I think they play in, and I think they can play out. I think they can shoot. I think they can get to the rim, and so I'm looking forward to watching them again. Most of these teams, and especially the teams from out of the area, once they leave here, I still keep tabs on them and see how they ended up. So I'm going to be following Pendleton, throughout the year, even after they leave this weekend's Avista tournament. But I think Moscow has a chance to make some noise this year.
And then, of course, the 4:30 p.m. game, Downey versus Lapwai, the game I was most looking forward to until my work schedule came out and said, you're not watching it on Thursday. So we'll have to keep tabs on how that goes. But Downey 6-7 on the year. Lapwai did get their first loss of the year as I always blank on the team from Oregon that beat them.
Baker.
Yeah, thank you. Baker and that rematch from their fantastic game last year. So Lapwai coming off of that loss. But this, just on paper, looks like one of the most fun matchups on either side of the bracket.
Yeah, I think it's it. I think it is. And Zachary doing the same thing. Zachary Eastman out at Lapwai. He's taking them to tournaments out of the area and having them play 3 days in a row and having them get used to that grind. And they're going to do it again here. And then assuming that they make it through what I think is really a good White Pine Lake team. Not to not talk about this tournament, but Potlatch is good. Kamei is good. I think this might be one of the biggest tests in league that Lapwai has this entire year. But as far as this tournament goes, similar to the girls, I'm sure Downey has scouted Lapwai and they know what they're going to come up against. And then again, you always have to look for Case. Why not? But the thing that was amazing to me about Case last year is how unselfish he was and how all the other people stepped up in this Avista tournament. And really, he was definitely not a one-man show, and he's not a one-man show this year either. And that's why they're so successful.
Yeah, he distributes the ball so well. It's not just him putting up 40 points. There's a reason why he has several triple doubles in his high school career. And then finally, the nightcap, 7:30 p.m. Hopefully it starts at 7:30. We'll see how backed up things get. But Rocky Mountain coming up from Southern Idaho, averaging about 50 points a game, struggling at 1-3, taking on Clarkston 4-3. And to me, this is a really fun one too, because Clarkston's played several 5A schools in Idaho, mostly in the Inland Empire League, but it's got to be really rare for Clarkston to play a team from Southern Idaho, and now they get a chance with this tournament.
Yeah, happy that Ivory can bring Rocky Mountain up, and again, they're just kind of getting going. They really, like you said, they've only played a handful of games, and so again, a good opportunity for them to play back to back. The loser of that game comes back not early in the day, but they come back in the afternoon, which is what you do in the losers bracket, and so. It's always hard to play the last game of the night. And then if you lose, you come back with really not as much rest as maybe someone on the winner side. But again, looking at the state tournament mentality, that's how it is. And so I don't know that anyone really has too much of a problem with how it shakes out. That's just how it is. But I'll tell you one thing about my buddy Justin Jones. He'll have the Bantams ready like he does every game.
All right, before we get you out of here, Mike, just tell people how they get tickets and how much they are, and just kind of last little promotion for this deal that starts on Thursday.
Yeah, we had a really good post on the Facebook a little bit ago that I saw about advanced tickets, and unfortunately, we don't have that capability. So tickets are at the door, and to be honest with you, there are a variety of options that you can get. You can get a one-day pass. You can get a tournament pass. You can get a family pass. So there's so many options. And because I don't have the list with me, I'm not going to guess and then have someone quote me and have me quote them the wrong price. But just know that you can buy tournament passes and they're good for varsity and JV. And the one thing we didn't talk about, and I'll just mention really briefly, if you don't mind, is that I think one of the reasons people want to come is because they get to bring their JV. And so we have full fields on both JV girls and boys. The first day, all the games will be at Clarkston beginning at 9. And then the second day, they're all at Lewiston. And then the third day, they're all back at Clarkston. But what we do with the JV bracket is we, at least on the first day, we make it so your JV doesn't play the same time your varsity does, in case, 2 reasons, in case you have family who want to see both, or in case you are one of those swing players who plays on both. We want you to be able to get, say you play 2 quarters on the JV, then you get to your varsity game, and if they need you, you play there too. So we do that on the first day only, and then after that, the bracket dictates, where you play and when you play. But the JV portion, the fact that we offer that is really a draw for us. So I'm sorry I can't tell you exactly how much the tickets are, but there's so many different options for you as a fan to watch just a lot of basketball the next 3 days. And yes, Jenny, this is Ready Kilowatt, the official Avista mascot that Shannon Wilson was kind enough to put on the shirt this year.
That's a great looking shirt. I'm excited to see all these teams and everything. I can't believe this is how many years now? What is this? 12 years now? 11.
This is the 11th
year.
Yeah, we didn't have it in 2020, but yeah,
and how much it has grown from where it was just a 4-team tournament to now getting teams from out of the area. So tournament starts on Thursday, 9 a.m. and it is a full day at the P1 FCU Activity Center on the campus of Lewis Clark State College, and hosted by Clarkson and Lewiston. Mike Tatko, thank you for joining us again in previewing the tournament and being the sponsor again for the Avista Holiday Basketball Tournament.
Well, thanks for all you guys. Thanks for everything that you do on this show and during the tournament and all year long promoting high school sports and college sports in our valley. And we hope you feel better, Robert.
All right. We're gonna sure try. We got just over a day, so we'll get it.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Yep, you bet.
Mike Tatko, who does all the big help of the Avista Holiday Tournament, also getting ready for LC baseball. Or call a couple of games this spring with him. So yeah, absolutely go check out the Avista Holiday Tournament. Maybe we can get Mike to send Robert the prices at some point tomorrow. We can post them on our page, but we'll make that all work out. Either way, we hope to see you either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. I know Robert will be there for every game. I'll be there for half the day Thursday, and I'll be there the rest of it Friday and Saturday. Check out all the great high school action. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm gonna repost the brackets tomorrow, so everybody will have brackets back out. I will do them individually, so we can look at them each a little bit bigger than normal. But I will repost those tomorrow, so keep your eyes open for those.
All right, let's shift gears from high school basketball to Week 16 in the National Football League. As let's just get this garbage out of the way. There's a team that somebody likes that did really well last night, I guess. You want to talk about it?
I don't know. I don't understand why you say garbage. They've played quite well. 5 straight wins. Listen, the best part about this game was how the defense came out and disrupted what Brock Purdy has been doing, coming away with 5 big interceptions, 4 of Brock, one of your former team members, Sam Darnold.
Yep.
But the pressure, I think that was the biggest thing between Clowney, Vanoy, and those guys, what they were doing to disrupt moving things around. Hamlin in there, making 2 big plays. A little concerned about what he is going to look like after getting hurt there towards the end. Didn't pay the final 2 San Francisco possessions, so hopefully it's still that same knee that he had some issues with a few weeks ago. So hopefully he'll be on the mend. But between it and listening to the talking heads today a little bit, and I'm going to ask you this, and it's just, we're so quick on the idea of MVP talk, so quick, and for them to have a huge comments of Brock Purdy. Brock's played quite well all season long.
Yeah.
This game was against a team for him that was probably nothing he had seen this year. And so all of a sudden for his name to say, well, he's definitely out of the talk. I don't know if that's 100% true yet.
Well, we'll talk more about MVP favorites here in a little bit when we kind of pick who we have through the first 16 weeks. But to me, Brock Purdy was out already. He was in there because he's a quarterback, but he's not the best player on his team. And it showed again on Monday night. And take away the turnovers, period. Christian McCaffrey was the offense in the first half. And give credit to Harbaugh, what he and that defense were able to do to shut down McCaffrey in the second half. A lot of that was helped by turnovers and Lamar Jackson taking advantage of the short field there in the third quarter and turning a close game into a blowout quickly kind of took away what McCaffrey is able to do. But CMC is the best player. He is the MVP of San Francisco easily, but it is a quarterback award. And that's why Brock Purdy was up there, because he was the quarterback on, at that time, the best team. Give credit to Baltimore and that defense. Like you said, the pressure that they brought really created the turnovers. I thought only one of the interceptions thrown by Purdy was completely his fault. The one into the end zone that was played beautifully by Kyle Hamilton. And other than that, it was really based off of the pressure from the Ravens. A lot of them were just tip passes, which, again, you cannot throw into a hand of a lineman, but sometimes those are a little fluky and they pop up in the right directions. That he had another one where he bounced off the face mask of a linebacker that could have been picked after it got knocked out. So, yeah, I didn't think Brock Purdy had the best chance to win MVP, other than, the way the MVP works. But I think he played himself out of it this week.
Yeah, it's just listening to those guys, and I'm so quick to judge on it. He just ran into a great defense and very disruptive between everybody. Like I said, Marlon Humphrey all over that field. Same with Brent Urban, and Kyle Hamilton. So that last night, able to Lamar to keep things going, over 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, one to Zay Flowers, the other to Nelson Aguilar, who was picked up and has been kind of that quiet person sitting on that roster, just every once in a while making a play. And so, for them to hold Bateman quiet and OBJ, hats off to San Francisco, because they have a heck of a defense too, between Bosa. But then you look at that offensive line, they ran into a big amount of problems as 3 guys had went down in the fourth quarter alone for the San Francisco 49ers.
That would be interesting. I think San Francisco will be just fine. I still think they are the favorite in the NFC. It's not like the Eagles are playing at their best. We've seen what Dallas has done the last couple of weeks. So I still think the 49ers are your favorites to represent their conference in the Super Bowl. And we could have a rematch in a couple of months between these two teams. And I can guarantee you it will not play out the exact same way, because that's just not how that works. People will now learn what happened in this game and make adjustments, and we'll see what happens. And but I'll just say this about Lamar Jackson. The talking heads during the game, the broadcasters were talking to the San Francisco coaching staff and what you do to prepare for Lamar Jackson. And they said it beautifully, is like, you have to prepare for 2 plays every play. The play that they call, and then the play that happens when everything breaks down and Lamar makes something else happen. The amount of times that, Lamar drops back and the pressure gets to him, or the receivers just don't get open, and he's able to buy them time and or just run the ball himself, makes it so difficult for a secondary in the NFL. And especially, you brought up the stats on your blurb for the power rankings. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson completely owns the NFC. They don't get to see him very often. They play Lamar once every couple of years. It's not like playing a division opponent that has a ton of tape and understands how he works. And for the 49ers, they ran into an offense and a defense that really surprised them and gave them looks that they just were not ready for. And if they meet up in another month and a half, I don't know if that'll be the same case, but Baltimore has shown they are the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and looking at what they can do over the next couple of weeks, and you said it, they've got a big matchup coming up next week, and we've had Miami up there and in the season, and we talked about it over the last couple of weeks. Is Baltimore's had the toughest, probably finishing 4-game series of the entire conference. Having to face Pittsburgh the last week, Miami and this last week with San Francisco. It was not an easy road for this club, and for what they're doing, and for the most part, keeping everybody somewhat healthy, not having really any major injuries the last couple of weeks is going to prove huge for this team in the next stretch and next few games.
You talk about the team that they will be taking on next week. Let's talk about them right here. As the Miami Dolphins survive in a really good matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams came into this game with a lot of question marks, I think. Could the Cowboys finally win on the road? Could the Dolphins finally win against a really good team? I think both teams struggled a little bit facing those situations, but Tua and the Dolphins get the victory here on a last second field goal to get the big win. What do you see different from Miami than you saw from San Francisco that could give Baltimore more fits next week?
I think what that team can do, especially, is what Tua has done, and the coaching of Mike, the young coach, of what he is doing with this ball club. But they've got to get Mozart and HN a little bit more carries. Them only getting right at 70 yards is not going to help this team win, especially against the Baltimore defense. And so I think they have to run the ball a little bit more, some different designs. But again, they've got the best wide receiver in probably in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. I mean, if he's not on the sideline or on the field and not participating in that game, it's a totally different team than what is being, set up there at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think it was the best we've seen from Miami. Obviously, Waddle gets hurt in the contest, and that kind of changes some things as well. I agree they need to run the ball a bit more. I mean, you have a great two-headed monster, as you said, with Mostert and Achan, and we'll see what they are able to do and game plan against a tough Ravens team and what is basically the battle for the bye. Whoever wins this game most likely will be your number one seed. I know Cleveland has an outside chance based on certain situations that happen over the next 2 weeks, but most likely your one seed will be the winner of this game and your two seed will be the loser of this game. And honestly, that week off is going to be so crucial for whoever gets that win. And that's why I think this game between these two, yes, San Francisco and Baltimore was a possible Super Bowl preview, but Miami and Baltimore might be the game of the year.
Yeah, it easily could be. But, I'm going to go back a couple years and say when Baltimore had the bye, I believe it was 3 years ago, it kind of bit them in the butt. They came out very flat. So I'm kind of one of those ones. Yes, I would like to see the first round bye, but knowing history and how we've played after it, that's the one thing that does scare me. I think this is the number one and number two team out of the AFC, especially the way a few of the other teams have played this year. And not to say they're downplaying themselves, but I think these two stand head and shoulders above all the other teams in the AFC right now.
As you said, momentum is a big thing, and getting the bye could hinder a team like Baltimore, I guess. But let's look at some of the teams that are really on the rise that could be wild card teams or maybe even win a division and really scare some of those top teams in both the AFC and NFC. I'll just list off 4 teams real quick. I want you to rank these 4 just based on threat level as far as making a deep playoff run. All 4 teams, I think, are playing their best football right now. And to me, when I was looking through the standings, our teams I could see make a run. So there's only one team in the AFC. That's the Buffalo Bills, who are going sky high right now. There's a couple of other interesting teams, but they're the ones that have won over the last couple of weeks. I almost put Pittsburgh on here, but they snapped a 3-game losing streak, so that doesn't count to me. So Buffalo in the AFC. And then in the NFC, how about the 2 NFC West teams, the Rams and, of course, the Seahawks? and the team that right now is leading that horrible NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing some really good football as of late. Rank those 4 teams as far as danger level to make a run.
I am highly impressed with what LA has done. I think I have to put them probably at the top of that list, even though Baker Mayfield has been playing quite well with Tampa, and what they're doing. The Rams on a 2-game win streak, finally getting that momentum. Cooper Kupp running quite well. But then you look at Seattle on the other hand, they have been such a roller coaster with their team this year. And you look at DK Metcalf, his numbers are down just a little bit. And so if I had to rank them in danger, I would probably say the Rams and then probably Buffalo. I'll probably jump to Buffalo with that one. And then I'm going to say Seattle, then Tampa Bay.
Trying to think if I want to flip anything. I think I would flip Buffalo ahead of the Rams right now. What the Bills are doing is very impressive, and they're playing their best football at the right time. I know they don't always have the best performances in January, but I think they're finding their stride. James Cook has really changed the way that offense feels. It's not all on Josh Allen. Obviously, the new offensive coordinator has helped with that as well. So I think they're playing their best ball at the perfect time right now. And there is a chance, if the Ravens do take care of Miami next week, that week 18 will determine who wins the AFC East, the Dolphins or the Bills, as long as Buffalo takes care of New England. And just like that, Buffalo could be a 2 or 3 seed, and then they're really dangerous at that spot. In the NFC, I'm with you. I think the Rams are the most dangerous of those 3 teams. Matthew Stafford obviously has the experience, and to have Cooper Kupp has been so quiet the last couple of months because of what Nakua has been able to do, but it's not like Kupp has lost his talent. So you have 2 great weapons there. Williams has been phenomenal in the backfield. The defense has been really good. Seattle, to me, is so under the radar because they never look like they're that good of a team. I was called a hater by Haven, and I get it, but I was correct in picking Tennessee for 98% of that game. But the Seahawks never give up. They find ways to get wins. The run game was really struggling against the Titans, but they come away with a victory. They're still in the 7th seed right now. But you can call me a hater, but I think they're 4th just for what Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans has been able to do. I think the Buccaneers are that team that, yes, they're basically locked in to play Dallas in that first round. The Cowboys are a better team, but Tampa Bay at home against the Dallas Cowboys who struggle on the road, I think Tampa Bay could win. And that is insane to me. And we would not have said that a month ago. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was
just going to say on the flip side, we'll talk about the teams that struggle. Dallas, Kansas City, Jacksonville. Which of those 3 teams do you think will be one and done in the postseason?
One more time. Jacksonville,
Dallas, and Kansas City. Which team will be one and done in the playoffs? Right now, if things stay the way they are, Dallas would travel to Tampa Bay. Cleveland would travel to take on Jacksonville. And Buffalo would travel to take on Kansas City. The Super Wild Card Weekend is looking amazing right now, by the way.
If I had to lean on it a little bit, and it's just the way they've played and how they have almost imploded, I would probably say Kansas City. Buffalo walk into Arrowhead and take care of business, and especially the way the frustration levels have played out over the last couple of games there. 2 quick takeaways in that game by Patrick Mahomes. Pincheiro out, could be out, not knowing with his concussion protocol. So I would say probably Buffalo.
You mean Kansas City?
Yeah, Buffalo going in and knocking that's right. Buffalo knocking off Kansas City.
To me, the team I'm worried about, and I did say one and done in the playoffs, this team might not even make the playoffs, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence has gone through a concussion protocol. Now he has a sprained AC joint. We'll see if he even plays week 17, though likely they are playing Carolina, so you would hope that's a win. They got really lucky that everyone in the AFC South lost last week, so they're still in a three-way tie for the division. So we'll just move on to that. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and Houston. 2 weeks left. They all are 8-7. Jacksonville is done against those two teams. They did sweep Indy, and they're 1-1 against Houston. So they would win a three-way tiebreaker if that somehow came to be. Is Jacksonville still the front runner, or do you give more push for Indianapolis and Houston?
Looking at the schedule, strength of schedule, you would say right off, paper-wise, Jacksonville should end up taking care of business, especially week 17 at Carolina, and then Tennessee, who just lost to Seattle. You would look that way, but I'm going to be a shocker, and I'm going to say Indianapolis. I think they're gonna be the ones that sneak in there. Yeah, they're 3-2 in the division, but they take on a team that is traveling across the country a little bit. Las Vegas heading into Lucas Oil Field. I think there's a strong, chance that they can take care of business and then hosting Houston. So I think they have. I think they have a little bit better running game with JT. I think if people jump on Gardner, and he stays average or just above average, I think this team could be dangerous.
I would agree. On paper, it looks like Jacksonville. I would not expect them to lose to Carolina, even with a backup quarterback. But give credit to the Panthers. They played extremely hard the last couple of weeks, got the upset win against Atlanta. They pushed Green Bay to the limit this last weekend. So that is definitely possible. But with Jacksonville winning that game, it kind of takes away the opportunity of Indy and Houston playing a winner-take-all kind of a situation. It could still be a winner-take-all for a playoff spot. But I'm going to say Jacksonville still holds on. But, I mean, the way it's looking right now, where they'll be the 4th seed taking on the 5th seed, which is the Browns, and what Joe Flacco has been able to do for that team, that is definitely a team that I am worried about going one and done.
And that's what Denise said. We were listening to some of the show yesterday, or a couple of the games yesterday, and she's like, why are they saying Flacco off of his couch? I'm like, he hasn't played in forever. Yeah. And now what he's doing for a team with his 4th start now, 3rd start, and what he's putting up, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I know a lot of people like to make fun of the Jets, and New York does play the Browns on Thursday Night Football. Oh, you had Flacco. You should have brought him back to be the backup for Aaron Rodgers. Go back to look what Flacco was doing 2 years ago for the New York Jets. He was not good. It was a struggle bus for him. So nobody saw this coming, and anybody that did is a big fat liar. I mean, he is having more success over these last 3 games than he's had the last 3 years. It's just impressive what he has been able to do with Cleveland. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, you look at the playoff matchups as they stand right now in the AFC. Baltimore would be your bye week team. Cleveland at Jacksonville would be a lot of fun as long as Trevor Lawrence is healthy. I think that one would be fantastic. Of course, Buffalo and Kansas City in a playoff matchup is just a dream. And then Indianapolis, Gardner Minshew taking on Miami could be sneaky good. But I do think that would be the bigger blowout of the 3. For the NFC, San Francisco would be your bye week team. You would have Dallas at Tampa Bay, which is a sneaky upset to me. Same with the Rams and the Lions. You talk about a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in forever. Congratulations to Detroit for winning the NFC North. First time that they've won that division. First time they've won a division in general in 30 years. So congratulations there. And then Seattle going to Philadelphia. Those are 6 fantastic games for Super Wildcard Weekend if those are the matchups we end up getting.
Yeah, hands down, looking at that setup of the rematch of Philadelphia and Seattle, and what can Detroit and LA do? I mean, that one that one's got the making of the trade all over again, between Goff and Matt Stafford. So, even what that team has done. So it looks like it's going to be a great finish. As much as we've complained about 8-7 and 9-6, some of these teams are looking quite well for those records.
Yeah. And you see it all the time. It just depends on what you're doing on the way in. It is NFL is a bit more top heavy on who makes it to the Super Bowl, but we get sneaky runs from time to time. You are watching the R&R Sports Report right here on Facebook and YouTube and my Twitter page. And thanks to StreamYard, those that do run through our Twitter page are able to finally interact with us. That was a thing that was they were unable to do, or X, or whatever it is. X. If you're on the X page, you can finally interact, comment. I saw a like bubble pop up, and so it's really cool. Once again, StreamYard continues to add different features to this website. Just makes the product easier and more interactable for us to bring you these live shows. Next week, I will not be here. Robert will have a special guest to be determined, and basically that is how we will run all of January. One of us will have a basketball game, the other one will have a guest host, but it will still be a lot of fun. You'll get different voices and different opinions on the show each and every week. Let's continue on with some NFL talk, and we've talked about playoffs, and those are always a fun race. As a Jets fan, I'm usually more focused on the draft order because the Jets are usually down there near the bottom. Not as much the case this year. They're 9th, I think, in the current draft order. But you look at your top 5 right now with 2 weeks to go. Chicago is the number 1 pick thanks to having the Carolina pick as from the trade last year. Carolina's 2-13. Arizona is 3-12. And then Washington would have the 3 pick, just over New England. They're both 4-11. And then the New York Giants would be the 5th pick. I bring up these teams to show that, I mean, yes, it's the Chicago team getting the pick, but Carolina has played well the last couple of weeks, trying to mess up their draft order. New England has won twice in the last couple of weeks to try to mess up their draft order. And, teams like the Chargers are finding interesting ways now to play with their new head coach. The Jets got a win against Washington that they dominated the first half and then got dominated in the second half and then won on a long field goal and mess up their draft pick. How much shuffling is going to happen over these last 2 weeks?
I think there's going to be a little bit more, even the shuffling with the New York Giants. I think that team is the one that I'm looking for. If they lose their last 2 games, could Brian Dable and both Wink Martindale be on the way out? I mean, it's been documented how much these two are button heads and, not working well together. You look at who New York has to play. They have to play the Rams this next week. And then after that, they end up playing, I believe, at home against Philadelphia. So you look at it on paper, those should be 2 losses for this team. And the Giants could easily find themselves maybe in the top 3 with draft pick. And then what do? You've got Daniel Jones. DeVito gets benched again. Tyrod Taylor comes in. I think that establishment, that ball club has got to have some type of major turnover or clearing of everybody and start again, even though they paid Daniel Jones that big chunk of money.
That'd be really interesting to see what they do. Same thing with Denver. It looks like their playoff hopes have been dashed. Do they move on from Russell Wilson? That's always been a big storyline that we've been following here the last couple months. Giants are interesting. What happens with the Patriots? Are the rumors that Bill Belichick has already been told he is gone at the end of the year true? Is he really gone? Is he sticking it to the Patriots by finally coaching winnable teams these last couple of weeks? All the conspiracy theories are so fun with that. It looks like Ron Rivera could be gone from Washington. There's so much intrigue in the offseason coming up.
And I've already heard that Bill Belichick would be the number one leader for the LA Chargers
Yeah,
gig.
I've heard that too.
I mean, it's just crazy to think of him. In all the conversations we've heard before, it would have been something down south in like Tampa Bay or something like that. But I think they've found their guy for a while.
All right, let's give out our NFL weekly awards. This one for week 16. I'll go first for the offensive player of the week. And how could you not give it to Amari Cooper, who set a Cleveland Browns single game record with 265 receiving yards? And I feel like he was shut down in the fourth quarter or got like a catch. He had the record pretty early on in that second half. 11 catches for those 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. He and Flacco are making quite the little duo here late in the year.
Yeah, that's a good one. But I had to go with a guy that basically the team rode from the second quarter all the way through the rest of the game, and that was Zamir White for Las Vegas. They, even though Aiden McDowell didn't have a single pass, completion in the second quarter on, handed the ball off to White. He was able to make things happen. 22 carries, 145 yards. So, 2 of those touchdowns come via the defense. So Zamir just handling the ball.
On defense, I will go to New England and give it to Christian Barmore, their defensive tackle. 8 tackles, 3 sacks in the game, and a forced fumble for a Patriots team that came away with a big upset victory and basically ended the season for the Denver Broncos, and a defense that has played really well this year. It's just been the offense that's been a mess for the Patriots.
Yeah, I like that one too. I almost went with another Vegas Raider. I had him in there. I had him typed in there with Malcolm Kuntz. I almost went that direction. He had 3 sacks and 5 tackles, but after last night's game, watching what he did, I'm going to give it to Kyle Hamilton, the safety for the Baltimore Ravens, coming away with 2 INTs. Yes, they were tipped INTs, but just found himself in the right place and right time, and he has made a difference in that defensive backfield coming out of Notre Dame there 2 years ago.
All right, those are your MVPs for week 16. But Robert, through 16 weeks, who is the National Football League MVP?
I want to say Lamar, but I've said this and we've talked about this a little bit. I think right now Christian McCaffrey just is the bigger target and the bigger person right now. And if I had a vote, even though Lamar's on my team for the Ravens, I'm leaning CMC.
I would love to say CMC with you again. If this was not a quarterback-driven award, I would think he'd be a lock. He has already set a career record with 1,395 rushing yards. He has 14 rushing touchdowns. He's added 7 receiving touchdowns on top of it this year. That's a career high as far as a single season goes for him there as well. He has been a big focal point on an offense that has a ton of weapons. It's not like it's just CMC and a bunch of studs. I mean, Deebo Samuel's on this team. George Kittle's on this team. Brandon Ayuk has been really good as well. But CMC just does so much for the 49ers. But you know what? I will give it to Lamar Jackson because of what we talked about in the first hour and the fact that defenses have to get ready for 2 plays every play because of his ability to stretch plays out. He already has a career high in passing yards. We talked about wanting to see him be a better passer with the different targets that he has. And I think Zay Flowers and Jackson are getting more and more of a fantastic connection. A couple of the other receivers haven't quite worked out, but 66% completion percentage. And this is not even talking about the running that Lamar does. And to me, that's a big point of emphasis is for the most part, other than him being able to extend plays, we're talking about his passing yards and his ability to find open areas to pass the ball. He's using his legs to bide more time for his receivers, not just go on and get big chunks of yards with his feet. And to me, that is really, really big to have that kind of um, just the ability to do both. And then the secondary doesn't see him go out of the pocket, go, okay, now let's collapse on him. It's is he going to run or throw? It's very interesting, and that's why I do think Lamar right now is your MVP.
Yeah, and if the other part of that too is you can swing it this direction, and you look at what he's done with almost 3,400 yards. Is he's only thrown 7 interceptions, so he's cleaned that up a lot. He's still got 2 more games in that one, and he's also doing it without his favorite target. And that's Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews being hurt too. And he's finding, like you said, the connections that he is making with Zay Flowers right now. OBJ has stepped it up a little bit in this one. So, Baltimore and Lamar Jackson finally signing that big deal this year probably was enough to motivate him to play at a totally different level. But you've heard him say, he's not all about the individual. He wants the championship. So,
all right, there you go. It's weird that I am picking a Raven and you are not in this category, but that is what it is, and I'll give you credit for not being a big homer. But we'll see how it happens over the last 2 weeks. But let's right now look at the NFL Power Rankings. Again, you can check out all 32 teams on our R&R Sports Report Facebook page. Smaller crew this week, as a lot of people were doing Christmas stuff and we got a bit too busy. So just 5 of us on the committee this week. And I'll tell you right now, the 5 that were left were very similar. The spreads were not as varied this time, partially because there was only 5 opinions in the water, but very, very tame power rankings this week. You look at your top 5, Baltimore, a unanimous number 1 pick from the 5 of us. San Francisco, a unanimous number 2. And then things kind of spread out a little bit. Miami is at 3, Philadelphia at 4, and Detroit is at 5. Any surprises from you there?
No, not necessarily. I think Philadelphia, has played a little bit more under the last couple of weeks. So I had them down at 5 just because Detroit has played and are showing that they can handle things in the NFC North. So that was my only difference, I think, in the whole thing, was switching those 2 around in the top 5. But I could easily see it being 4-5 either direction.
Yeah, I'm very high on Buffalo. So I had Buffalo 4, and then Detroit 5, and then Philadelphia 6. So we were all kind of right there. I just have Buffalo a bit higher than you. It was interesting to see how that broke down. Eric and I both had Buffalo at 4. You, Sean, and Zach all had Buffalo at 7. So it was just how much faith you had in that team. I believe top 9 were the same for everyone except Zach has Kansas City at 10, not 9. But other than that, the top 9 had the same 9 teams involved. Do you think there's a gap between, say, looking at your 8 is Dallas, your 9 is Kansas City? Is there a gap between Dallas and Kansas City right now compared to Tampa Bay, the Rams, and the Seahawks that you had 10, 11, and 12?
I don't think so. I mean, they're just within a little bit. I think the big thing for me with that Kansas City team is they've got to quit dropping passes, and they've got to find that spark again of playing like a defending champion and playing like an AFC champion, and they're just struggling so much with that. And I think part of it, not having a consistent run game and that running back in and out so much. Now you look at Dallas and Pollard, he has been the workhorse ever since Ezekiel now in New England. It has been Tony Pollard, but finding the consistency to hit CeeDee Lamb and Dak, finding those open receivers has been a struggle. And I don't think the defense has played a ton up to where you can see the frustration levels with Micah Parsons and that team. So I think those two are very interchangeable, those positions right now.
Dallas with a really fun game. We'll talk about that shortly in week 17. Both Dallas and Kansas City dropped 3 spots in our rankings this week. As I said, Dallas 8, Kansas City 9. The biggest mover up, and if you combine with how much they moved up the week before, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the last 2 weeks have jumped up 10 spots in our power rankings. They're now in the top 10, right at that 10 spot. Again, I said that the Buccaneers, Rams, and Seahawks are at a near 3-way tie for that 10th spot. What have you seen from the Buccaneers these last couple of weeks that have had all of us really move them up as much as we did?
I think you said it a little bit ago, and that's the surgence of Mike Evans with the relationship with Baker Mayfield. They have finally got on page. They're getting him the ball, and he's making plays. I think that's the biggest part is having somebody that Baker can trust and rely on every down to play with that one. And I think that's the biggest part for that Buccaneers team.
And then the other two that were really interesting to me, Cincinnati dropped down 5 spots to go to 15th. Pittsburgh moved up 5 spots to go up to 16th. Obviously, both teams working with backup quarterbacks. Cincinnati with Jake Browning, who kind of turned into a bit of a pumpkin this last weekend. And Pittsburgh, who had Mason Rudolph, who I don't know where that came from. I just figured, all right, Cincinnati will take care of business against the Steelers because Mason Rudolph's no good. And Rudolph took care of business. Were you shocked, though, that Pittsburgh did not pass the Bengals in our power rankings?
It's been a season of, like you said, the quarterback changes so much with going on there, and the talkings of head coaches in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin. I think there's a little extra noise, white noise hanging around with that ball club. But I think Pittsburgh really does have a tough finishing schedule. You know, they've got Seattle this week as they travel all the way across the country here to play Seattle. And then Baltimore finishes up the season against Pittsburgh. So could they sneak in? It would be interesting to see if they can sneak in and stay in the wild card. But it's sad not seeing a team that has Jamar Chase on there every week and Joe Burrow every week, and the inconsistency of Joe Mixon, I think, has been a huge spot on that Bengals team.
And then 2 other teams that you and I had kind of flipped in our rankings. You have Green Bay at 18. I have the Packers all the way down at 23. On the flip side, I have the Raiders all the way up to 17th, and you have them at 22nd. Why do you like the Packers so much more than than the Raiders right now?
I think biggest part is Jordan Love is starting to play and getting a little bit more comfortable. For me, why I put the Raiders down farther is just because of Aiden McDowell has played a couple of really good games, but he has been very inconsistent. Now, with that being said, I think the Raiders have probably right now the AFC Defensive Player of the Year in Max Crosby. Max Crosby is playing lights out. He pressured Patrick Mahomes the whole time, but I think the youth of the team from Green Bay, they're finally getting the spark. You know, Love is finally getting Dylan. Aaron Jones finally has a 140-yard day, no touchdowns, but he was part of, I have to say it, part of my fantasy team that got me into the championship round with him having, 14 points coming off of rushing game with no touchdowns. So I think that team is slowly going to make a step up over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the future is very bright for Green Bay. That's what I wrote in the blurb, I'm pretty sure, for the power rankings this week. And I like that team in the future. But right now, that defense for the Raiders completely stifling Kansas City was really impressive. The fact that they didn't even have to really throw the ball at all in the final 3 quarters couldn't complete a pass, and they're able to get the job done. You would like to see Aiden McConnell be able to, actually play quarterback. And I can understand why people have them a bit lower because of that fact. I was the highest at 17. Sean had them at 18 for the Raiders. But you want to talk about a team right now that just feels like they are a quarterback away? That's the Raiders. I think they've now found their head coach. Hopefully they hire him. I'm blanking on his name right now because I'm
Antonio Pierce.
Thank you, Antonio Pierce. He's been phenomenal. So I think they found their head coach. I think their defense is great. They have enough weapons offensively. They just need a quarterback right now. Obviously, they tried with Jimmy G and it didn't work. And Aiden McConnell was their rookie, and he's shown flashes of being competent, but maybe a good backup. So I think they need to go out there and find themselves a really good quarterback, and they could be a threat next year.
The only thing that scares me with that, and you do say that their defense is looking good, but what scares me is them going after and getting Devontae Adams. And now with the way the team played at the beginning of the year, you got the vibes of him not being happy, not wanting to be there. Mm-hmm. What happens at the end of this? If, say they do make the playoffs and they can, there's still a slim chance that they can make it, but say they make it, does that change his idea of wanting to stick around? But I would agree with you 100%. They've got to figure out a quarterback of some sort, whether, but then you look at who would you go after to have sitting behind him, is it a, Minnesota's got to have to clear out a few of their quarterbacks of the next couple years. Do we see Joshua Dobbs move again, or do we see?
I don't think he's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names that you could throw out there. I don't think Jimmy G has proved it to get that starting job back. So,
and depending on his Achilles and what he wants to do, maybe Kirk Cousins is the answer. He's a free agent, and it sucks that he tore his Achilles on his contract year, but that might be a perfect spot for him with the Raiders. We'll see. Let's look at week 17 and no Monday Night Football. The rest of the year, they don't have one week 18 either. And of course, this is because January 1st lands on a Monday, and the NFL is kind enough to get out of the way for the January 1st bowl games, the only bowl games that really matter. And it's the only few that should still be around, but that's just me. But let's look at the week 17 slate. It starts on Thursday at a game you can just stop. You don't need to watch. It's fine. New York Jets against the Cleveland Browns. I'm taking Cleveland. Let me get it out of the way right now.
Yeah, Cleveland is a 7-point favorite at home against a Jets team who is just 2-4 on the road. So I think this is a no-brainer. I think Joe Flacco throws another 300-yard game this week.
I don't know if the Jets defense will allow it. The defense for New York has been really good, though the second half is still confusing how Washington and Jacoby Brissett were able to have their way and come back and take that lead. I think the Jets took their foot off the gas for sure. I love that Cleveland's a 7-point favorite and the over-under is just 35.5. It's such a low over under. It's because the Jets are not good. However, I'm going to say this, and I brought it up on my blurb. So many talking heads. Colin Cowherd was one of them. Said, there's no chance Aaron Rodgers is going to lead this New York Jets team to even 6 wins. It was like not even Aaron Rodgers could fix this team. The offensive line is so bad. Yeah, the defense is good, but there's so many mistakes with this team, and it's so rough. And now the narrative is, now that the Jets have won 6 games, is they would have made the playoffs if they didn't have to deal with the drama that was Aaron Rodgers. It's like, yes, the Jets would be better if Rodgers' Achilles would have held up and he would have been able to play quarterback for them all year long. But they're saying they should have went in a different direction in the offseason and they would have made the playoffs. So what is it? This team was not good enough that even a good quarterback in Aaron Rodgers could save them. Or now the narrative on Aaron Rodgers always makes me laugh. Is he a prick? Probably. Does he act like a prick and does he sound like a prick sometimes when he does interviews? Sure. He's one of those people that definitely sounds like he feels like he is smarter than you. And that is fine if you hate him personally. But just the narrative of oh, the Jets, zero chance they win 6 games, even with Aaron Rodgers. And now they have 6 wins. They've won six games, even without him. Oh, they would have made the playoffs. What is it? Are the Jets a horrible team or not?
I don't.
It's a horrible offensive line for sure. We can all agree on that.
I think that was been their downfall this year.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about how well that defense is, and with Sauce Gardner, with Williams being there, the D tackle, this team is built to have a strong game, but it boils down to the offense giving them points to put them in the lead or keep them competitive. Yeah. And with a Zach Wilson, they just can't do that. And so
he hasn't even played the last couple of weeks.
And that's the thing. And
it's been Trevor Siemian of all people.
And then you had Tim Boyle. I mean, there has not been a consistent. It's like, okay, who's coming behind door number 4? And that's what it feels like. It feels like, let's make a deal. Do you want what's in the box or what's behind door 4? I mean, that's the feeling of it. And that the consistency, if Aaron Rodgers can bring them that consistency to make something happen, I could see that instead of being 6-9, we're talking about 8-8 or maybe even 9-6.
Probably higher than that. Who knows? We both picked them to win the division because we were crazy back in August. And again, those that think that the Jets need to have a complete overhaul, it's not happening. What the Jets are, what the Jets are going to be next year, they're going to run this all back, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy. I guarantee you that they will do their best to get whatever offensive lineman they can to try to find 5 people that can stay healthy and play the position at a decent enough level. But yeah, coach is not leaving, GM's not leaving, none of that's leaving. And that Hackett's still there, whether I want him there or not. It's just the Jets are using this as a wash year. It's sad to say with some of the young talent and wasting their year, but that happens when quarterbacks go down. You can say the same thing with Cincinnati. Just Jake Browning ended up being a pretty good backup for a few weeks. You could say the same thing about Minnesota when Cousins went down. Mm-hmm. Look at the mess in New York. Look at all the different teams that have had backup quarterbacks for several weeks. Trevor Lawrence has been a mess. So it's be interesting to see how next year goes. So I just always found it funny that was the narrative at the start of the year, and now it is still Aaron Rodgers' fault, even though it's like injuries happen. It's like we're not blaming Joe Burrow and his injury for the downfall of Cincinnati and what a horrible human being Joe Burrow is for getting hurt.
But what's funny is how many people dive in and are so intrigued with what he says. You know darn good and well that's why people are watching the Pat McAfee show on Wednesdays, or I think it's Wednesdays he's on there is for his little insight or his kind of feeling kind of thing,
And we get sick of it. We get sick of hearing about the Dallas Cowboys. But why do they keep talking about the Dallas Cowboys on shows like First Take? Because it brings in the ratings. I watch First Things First. They talk about the same 4 teams every single day. Why? Because people want to tune in and listen to it. Like First Things First knows their market and they know their lane. And it's football. It's a little bit of basketball in there. They never talk baseball. And they know their lane and they run with it. And that's the same with Aaron Rodgers. He is in everyone's lane and everyone talks about him. And that's just how it works. Look at the rest of the Week 17 slate. Saturday is going to be a really fun one. This could have been the Monday night game, I guess, if they didn't move things around. And it basically is, as this ESPN running it. But Detroit and Dallas. Won't ask you who's going to win the game, but who's going to make the bigger run in the postseason?
Boy, this is going to be a tough one. This is one that I'm hoping that we can finish out the Avista tournament on time so we can watch the second half, because I think this is one of the other big games of the weekend. I think for me, I'm going to jump on the Detroit bandwagon. And if Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery can keep pounding the ball that they've been doing in that shared role, and what Goff is doing, Dan Campbell and him changing the culture of that team.
Yeah.
I think it's all that club there.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Detroit can make a decent run as well. New Year's Eve, we got a bunch of games going on. Look at some that are interesting. Tatko's Raiders are on the road against Indianapolis in a loser is out game, most likely. Colts could somehow get in, especially win the division if the rest of the AFC South teams continue to implode as well. How about another loser team might be out? New Orleans and Tampa Bay. That was one of those games where the Saints lost and it didn't mean anything because if they beat Tampa Bay, they can still be the division leader, even though they are a game back. Miami and Baltimore somehow has still been stuck at a 10 a.m. start time. That did not get flexed out to any kind of a great game, but that's really fun. You only have 3 afternoon games, but I would say all 3 of them are intriguing. Steelers and Seahawks, both teams trying to get into their respective playoff picture. Chargers trying to work some stuff out with their new head coach and see what Stick is able to do, taking on Denver. Denver still has an outside chance to somehow steal the AFC West if the Chiefs keep imploding. Speaking of Kansas City, they host Cincinnati, who has to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. But this game being at Arrowhead, I don't see that being very likely for the Bengals. And then Sunday Night Football, Packers and Vikings in a game that, again, the winner still has a slight chance to make the playoffs and the loser has no chance. So there's some really intriguing matchups with 2 weeks to go here in the regular season.
Yeah, the Ravens and Miami game is the game in the morning, and it will be televised here locally. It is, I think, hands down, probably the game to watch in the morning ones. Besides that Giants Rams game, because Rams have got a lot to play for, I think, and if they can keep winning out, that's going to be a big one there. But I'm like you too. I think the afternoon games. Why are we going to settle for watching the Broncos and the Chargers? Everybody's going to be watching the Steelers and Seahawks on that one. And right now, Seahawks are only favored by 3.5 at home.
I don't know. I'm watching Bengals Chiefs. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, we do have to bowl it. We do have to bowl at 3:00, so it'll be interesting to see which games we focus on.
I don't know. I'll bring down my computer and watch the red zone anyways. So that's how things work. Let's finally ship off of the National Football League and get to Major League Baseball. Not a lot of local stuff. We'll hit some LC stuff here in a minute, but everyone on their Christmas break. So really didn't have a lot to talk about locally. So spread out the NFL a little bit. And of course, having Tatko on for the first 30 minutes to talk about the Avista was fantastic. Shohei gave Joe Kelly's wife a new Porsche to give Shohei his number, which was cool, even though I still can't stand Joe Kelly. That was a cool story. Yankees traded Estevan Florial to Cleveland. Florial used to be a top prospect. Not much there. Don't know who this Cody Morris kid is, who they traded for. Your Seattle Mariners finally made a move. Their first acquisition of the offseason. You get Mitch Garver, 2 years, $24 million. Thoughts on that?
It's a big thing. Get him away from the Texas Rangers. Now you look at how that catching staff is going to look. I mean, you've got Cal Raleigh, you've got Tom Murphy, so it's going to be interesting. I don't think they hold on to 3 of them. I think one of those guys are going to be on the move, but I think you get the younger Carter in there. And
we lost Robert. He started talking about the Mariners and he got all choked up. Sorry, guys.
Just trying to not cough in the microphone.
Right.
But you get a younger Garver, I think is big. I think they try to hold on to Cal Raleigh, but I don't think Tom Murphy's going to stick around with the ball club.
And some Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitcher guy went to the Dodgers. That wasn't a big thing, right?
It was sad that you were not at the bowling alley on Thursday.
I'm so glad I wasn't.
Because there was about 8 of us watching that when it came across all of our phones, and everybody looked at from Richie to Clint to Malcolm. And, I did say one comment to Clint and Jay that was standing there is, who would be just dancing and laughing in heaven right now. And that'd be Elmer. what the Dodgers are doing for what they're doing to make their team better, all I could just say is Elmer's got to be dancing around right now.
12 years, $325 million, which is $1 million more than the full contract that the Yankees gave to Garrett Cole. So this is the most money given to any starting pitcher in Major League Baseball history. And again, this was only made possible because of the Ohtani deal and the deferred money that he gave up to get pushed 10 years from now so he could have a competitive team around him. He saw what happened with the Angels, where it was him and Mike Trout and a bunch of nobodies. And they just couldn't even make the postseason. The Dodgers are going to have no problems making the postseason for the next at least 5 years, you got to think, as long as they can stay healthy. It's just, can they get the run to get to the World Series? I've said this multiple times on this show. This kind of stuff is really good for Major League Baseball. And yes, I wanted Yamamoto really bad to be a Yankee. I thought that would be really good for the club. And the Yankees really need starting pitching so bad. But for him to go to Los Angeles, it's not them buying championships. It doesn't work that way. You can buy playoff appearances. The Yankees have done that for decades, but you don't win championships. And again, I've done this enough times where go back and look at the winners of the World Series. How many of them were the number one team as far as spending went? Now, yeah, the Dodgers are the top spending team. They make the playoffs all the time. The Yankees are right up there. They make the playoffs most of the time. But the Mets spend a lot of money as well, and they struggle to make the postseason. It's not just spending money. It's spending money wisely. And the Dodgers have done a really good job. That rotation and that lineup looks so sick. And again, it's so good for baseball because they are now must-see TV. When they're going to be on Sunday night football or Sunday night baseball more often than you want. But guess what? You're going to tune in and you're going to watch this team and see how special they are. Like the Dodgers-Giants rivalry is going to get cranked up to 11 because the Giants fans are going to lose their minds with how much money the Dodgers spent, and the chants are going to be great. It's just, this is good for baseball. I just wish he went to the Yankees.
Yeah, for me to see nothing else happening with the Mariners, I really wish they would have tried to push for another arm, but who knows? Baseball is finding itself back a little bit more in the mainstream, and with those changes over the last year, with the clock, with the bases being bigger, the stolen base numbers up, and baseball is a lot quicker and it's a lot nicer to watch, and the interactive, and I think it's just going to keep benefiting. And when these teams finally start making big moves and we start seeing more of these foreign born, and I shouldn't say foreign born, but more of these Korean and Japanese players coming over to the United States, it's going to play a bigger dividends. We've always had the Latin community with Mexico and all of that, the Dominican. It's why I love watching the World Baseball Classic. It's just to watch all these players. But I think seeing these Japanese folks coming over and shaking things up is going to be a plus for a lot of these teams. And so,
yeah, absolutely a lot of fun. And we're a couple of months away to start the baseball season. Talked about a little bit of LC news as both basketball teams had one game last week. It was a day after our show, Wednesday, where, what'd you say?
I said always. Something always happens the day after the show.
But both teams come away with victories against Walla Walla. The women, holy crap. If you showed up 10 minutes late to that game, you missed the whole game. Because the Warriors jumped out and scored the first 23 points in the first quarter against Walla Walla. Had a 28-5 lead after the first quarter, and then only outscored the Wolves by 3 points the final three quarters. They kind of coasted the rest of the way to a 60-34 victory. Callie Stevens with 16 points, Tatum Bragger with 11 points. The women went into their break at 9-2. Men go to their break on a 6-game winning streak as they are now 8-4 after an 87-67 win against the Wolves. Jaden Bradley had another fantastic game. He is becoming such a star for the Warriors right now. 28 points and 11 rebounds. David Brown had 15 points. Alton Hamilton had a fantastic game with 13. And Anthony Peoples Jr. also got a double figures with 11. Both teams will be back in action January 5th when they go on the road for a couple games, starting with at Eastern Oregon. Hagen and whoever will be in my spot. We'll kind of preview that on next week's show. Also, during those two games at the half times of both the women's and men's contest, they announced the Warrior Athletic Association's 17th annual high school awards. Already talked about Ty Kep, who is the male athlete of the year. He from Kendrick. He was able to beat out Case Wynot in that category. Female athlete of the year went to Haley Taylor, also of Kendrick. Tigers also won team of the year for Kendrick football. Deborah Blazard won coach of the year for Troy volleyball, who won state this year. And the Rick Hill Meritorious Award went to Patrick Barnett of Nez Perce. He passed away in this last calendar year. His two sons were there to accept his award. That was a pretty good moment as well. Always really cool what they do to kind of highlight especially the smaller schools here in the area. We try to do our best as well, but we're just two guys and one podcast. But we like to try to get at least some recognition out to those guys. And I know the Tribune does a good job as well. All right. I have waited as long as I can. I pushed it back as far as I can. Let's get the rest of these bowl games out of the way. We have now gone through 20 bowl games. It'll be 21 once Kansas concludes their victory against UNLV. They lead 27-7 right now, late in the first half. 21 bowl games. And I feel like there's 21 more bowl games to go. And I can't do it. And it hurts my head. And I don't care that I'm beating like 97% of the people on ESPN. There's too many of these games to the point that the Pop-Tarts took a Super Bowl trophy, cut holes in it, and put Pop-Tarts in it. And that's their trophy. Have you seen that monstrosity?
I have not. I have not seen that yet.
Let me look it up while you talk about whatever's happened in these.
And you said it just a second ago, and I'll make you feel good about yourself. You're pretty darn close. We're 21 games in, 22 to go. That includes the championship playoff, where we'll have our selection with that on the show next week. But today's action has been huge. Minnesota come away with a big win, 30-24 in that matchup. Texas Tech took on Rice and was able to handle Rice in that one, winning 45-21. As now I got to make my screen bigger where I can see this Pop-Tart.
Look at this horrendous trophy. This is what bowl games have done to college football. It's horrible. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate all of it.
And like you said just a minute ago, Kansas leading right now 27-7 in that one. So, all right, sir, we have 4 games. We got 21 games to pick here really quick. We'll go through them very quickly. We have 21 to pick tonight. Yes, I said that, 21.
Blackjack.
We'll start with tomorrow's. First off, I guess I'll do Wednesdays. We'll let you do Thursdays. I don't know. We'll play it. The Military Bowl will kick things off tomorrow, 11 o'clock. Virginia Tech taking on Tulane. Virginia Tech, 10.5-point favorite. Who do you have, sir?
You don't go against the Green Wave. I don't care if they are down 10.5 points. Big upset. Give me Tulane.
I'm going to catch up in this game, so it looks like I'm going to gain the game. So
you
give me
say
Virginia
that how many
Tech.
times? The records show.
Let's talk.
The records show.
We'll talk about the records.
Nothing on me.
We'll talk about the records. How I have a 12-game lead in the NFL picks here shortly.
What?
Yes, that's what I thought.
I thought we agreed not to talk about NFL picks anymore.
The Duke's Mayo Bowl tomorrow afternoon, North Carolina versus West Virginia. West Virginia 6.5-point favorite. Who do you got?
Did you see in the Idaho Famous Potato Bowl the Georgia State coach getting a Gatorade bucket of French fries dumped on his head?
Yep, it's the same thing with the Duke's Mayo Bowl. They did it last year.
Do you think both coaches are coaching to make sure their team does not win, so they don't have mayo dumped on their head?
Who knows? It's gonna be a mess. It was a mess last year.
I don't know. Give me North Carolina. We'll be different twice tomorrow, just for fun. Give me the Tar Heels.
Yeah, I'm gonna take West Virginia. I'm gonna take the 6.5-point favorite. Afternoon game. I think this is the game tomorrow to watch.
No.
If you are watching, Louisville takes on USC. Right now, Louisville is a 7-point favorite. Who do you like in this one?
Caleb Williams is not playing right.
Right.
Anybody else for USC that's that actually any good even playing in this game? It's going to be Louisville and not even close.
Yeah. I'm going to take Louisville also. And then in the Texas Bowl, Texas A&M taking on Oklahoma State. USC, come on, no. There's no way that they win that game, period. Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's favored by 2. Give me the Cowboys.
I just love the fact that Tax Act sponsored the Texas Bowl just because it's close in spelling. Give me Oklahoma State as well. Hopefully Haley did not hear me say that.
We look at Thursday and the Wasabi Fenway Bowl played at Fenway Park.
Same question about the Mayo Bowl. Are the coaches trying to make sure they don't have wasabi dumped on their head?
I don't know. Maybe they're going to have some little why am I drawing a blank? It's some sushi.
Some clam chowder.
Some sushi sitting there waiting for him. Boston College takes on SMU. SMU is a 10-point favorite. I think this is a no-brainer. SMU rolls over Boston College.
Yeah, I agree. Give me the Mustangs. Not close.
The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl.
What are we doing?
That's the one that's at Yankee Stadium. Am I right?
Yeah.
Rutgers taking on Eric Watkins' Miami team. Rutgers is favored by 1. Who do you got?
I was tempted to take Rutgers just because they're up there in the New York area, but that did not work for Utah State, traveling a short distance to take on Georgia State in Boise. I was able to get that one right against you, sir. Not seen Eric yet, so I can't win any bonus points with him, but give me Miami as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take Miami. I think they are just too much for that Rutgers game. You pulled up the trophy a minute ago. The Pop-Tarts Bowl is on Thursday. North Carolina State taking on Kansas State. Kansas State favored by 2.5.
This one was really tough for me. We're just looking at everything, trying to make the picks. I go through a couple of different views as far as who has the better defense, who came into the game playing better, though we are now far enough away from the end of the season where I think the last couple of games do not matter anymore. You kind of look at some of the star players, who's playing, who's not. This one was extremely tough. So give me Kansas State, and I'm glad that we picked different in this one just because, again, I don't watch any of these, but if I was watching any of the ones we've talked about so far, that would probably be the one just because I think it's the most intriguing.
Yeah, give me the Wolfpack. I just need to be a little bit different. I don't know if Kansas State will be able to hold on against North Carolina State. And there he is.
The mascot is edible.
Oh, funny.
What is happening?
Now we look at
my job sometimes.
The Valero Alamo Bowl, Arizona taking on Oklahoma. Arizona pulled off some big wins this season.
Mm-hmm.
I was against them most of the season. They are a 3-point favorite. I'm still going to take the Sooners.
Yeah, I was tempted to take the Wildcats for that same reason, just for what they've been able to do this year. But it's tough to take a team against the Sooners in a bowl game. It always seems like Oklahoma is one of those few that really take it serious.
All right, that was 4 games. We're 8 games in. We still have 13 to go, sir. We look at Friday.
What? We're not done?
No, we got 13 left to go. We take a look at the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Clemson versus Kentucky. Clemson is a 4-point favorite. Who do you like?
Kentucky's move on to basketball. Give me Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson, I think, is just going to be too big on that one. And one of my favorite bowls, the Tony the Tiger. We'll go back to Frosted Flakes as is the best cereal out there. So just where you know, Frosted Flakes and Tony the Tiger. Notre Dame versus Oregon State. Oregon State, one of the only 2 Pac-12 teams left after this next year. Notre Dame favored by 6. Who do you got?
I was tempted to take the Beavers because, again, that defense has played so well. They've had a couple of really good upsets that I've been able to get correct, but I'm going to take the Irish. I just think that this is an Irish team that underperformed, and they're one of the few top programs that really want to show off here in this bowl game to try to get ready for the next year.
Yeah, it looks like we got a couple of people there.
Mhm.
Oregon State. Eric is going to take Oregon State. I am going to take Notre Dame. I'm like you. I think Irish just too much. How about the AutoZone Liberty Bowl? Memphis taking on Iowa State. The Cyclones are favored by 10. I think this is a no-brainer. Give me Iowa State.
I think it's a no-brainer as well. Give me the Cyclones. I forget why. I'm trying to look through my notes, and I can't remember why I did. So, yeah, give me Iowa State.
This next one was one that I was back and forth with, and I it's so hard to go against Ryan Day. Goodyear Cotton Bowl, Missouri. I believe they are the number 9 team taking on number 8 Ohio State. Ohio State favored by 1. I'm gonna make you make your pick. I might change mine.
That's not allowed. It's not allowed at all. Give me the Buckeyes. I don't know. Just give cuss.
I was back and forth all day with trying to make this pick. I'm going to stay with Iowa State. I think Day has his team ready to go. All right, we get Saturday. It's the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Ole Miss taking on Penn State. Penn State favored by 3.5. I think we're going to pick differently. Give me Ole Miss.
Yeah, give me the Big Ten team. Give me Penn State in this one.
It'll be an interesting one. And then we've got the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl played in Nashville, Tennessee. Auburn versus Maryland. Auburn is a 7-point favorite in this one. Give me Maryland in this one and the Terrapins.
You know, we got it right with Minnesota today. I only picked the Gophers because they were under 500. And I hate the fact that they got a bowl. And I just knew that they were going to get a win in a bowl game and still finish under 500. I've lost my train of thought. Which game were we? The same thing with I'm scrolling through all my picks to look at my stuff, and I forgot what game we were talking about. Yeah, Auburn's 6-6. Auburn is 6-6. Should not be in a bowl game, and because of that reason, give me the Tigers.
You brought up their team name.
There are so many. I get lost at where we are in these stupid things. So I think of an old game, and I have to scroll around.
I have to say this. You brought up Minnesota a minute ago. Did you see their helmets today? Those helmets were pretty slick looking helmets. They had the gopher on one side and the big giant M on the other. Love the helmets. So, all right.
Are we done?
Nope, we're down to the Capital One Bowl, the Orange Bowl. This is the one that would make a big difference if it was actually happening with part of the playoffs. Florida State, who their quarterback has now entered the transfer portal, won't be playing, along with a bunch of their other players, taking on Georgia, and it reflects it. Georgia now a 16.5-point favorite. Give me the Bulldogs.
Yeah, there's a lot of transfers for Florida State, and it worries me, but I have been dead set in this, and I'll give you a game here. I'm pretty sure I will be incorrect, but Florida State got robbed. I was hoping that they would work together to show that they deserve to be there. They haven't needed a quarterback the last month of the regular season. The defense was so good. Again, some of them are leaving as well. The fact that the transfer portal is allowed to be open before these bowl games are even allowed to be played show that these bowl games don't matter. The fact that we have to decide on who's going to win these games when half of the teams are going to be different drives me insane. And it drives me nuts. But I've been dead set that I was going to take Florida State no matter what, just because they got robbed out of making the playoffs. So I'm going to stick with the Seminoles, even though I'm sure they will lose by 50. I still have a couple of games lead. So give me Florida State.
Eric gets it right. They're going to have a lot of things going on. All right. In a game that I was last second, this was the last one I entered. We caught a lot of flack from our buddy George about Wyoming this year. I have another friend that is from Wyoming. She is a huge Cowboys fan. Toledo taking on Wyoming. Wyoming 3.5-point favorite. Who do you have, sir?
Suck it, George. Give me Toledo.
George and Goldie, I am taking Wyoming. I don't want to mess this one up again. All right, then we jump over to Monday's game. Now we get into the important bowl games. The Quest Bowl, Wisconsin taking on the Tigers of Louisiana State. Give me LSU, and they're favored by 10. Give me the points, too, on this one.
Yeah, give me LSU. We got 5 minutes left. We got to get through these.
All right. We got the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Iowa taking on Tennessee. Tennessee, an 8.5-point favorite. Give me the Volunteers.
Yeah, Iowa always has really good defense. I just couldn't go with it. Give me the Vols.
And an interesting one that I was really, really looking forward to, but I think it's going to be a blowout. It is the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, Oregon, taking on Liberty. Liberty is a great team. I don't want to say that they are a bad team whatsoever, but I think Oregon handles everything with 17.
Don't give them ideas, Denny. Just we have enough of them.
So
who you're taking? I'm taking.
Yeah, Oregon. I took Oregon. Yeah, Oregon with that one. All right. Now we're down to the 2 games that matter most, the playoffs, the Rose Bowl, and they have these backwards. They should have had them the other direction. Rose Bowl, Michigan taking on Alabama. Michigan right now, 2-point favorite. How do you go against a Harbaugh, especially against Nick Saban? Give me Michigan.
Go against them all the time. But I'm going to take Michigan as well. I always thought you were going to say, how can you go against Saban in these playoffs? He always comes away with big wins. So I'm taking Michigan with very little fate. Alabama always shows up in these situations, but I like what the Wolverines have done this year. So I think they finally get that big win they've been looking for.
Yeah. And then everything wraps up with an evening game on New Year's Day. It is the All-Star Sugar Bowl. Washington versus Texas. Texas is a 4.5-point favorite. I'm going Pac-12. Give me Washington to come away with the win in this one.
I have picked against Washington so many times because the Pac-12 was going to Pac-12. And the Huskies proved me wrong every time. So give me Washington and watch a Pac-12 team win the national championship in the last year of the Pac-12 will Pac-12.
I like that. We'll have that pick the next week as we get through it, and
of course, the show I won't be on. You pick one game instead of the 21 we just had to go through.
That's how it falls.
Robert will post all of them in a giant spreadsheet that might need 3 pages to show you all of the picks that we have made and what are coming up. Follow along with us. Put your picks in. As well as we wrap up this show, just real quick, just kind of a reflective look at 2023. This is our last show of this calendar year. Again, want to thank everyone that has been a part of it, whether it's in the comments, have been a guest on the show, have guest hosted the show, or just kind of help spread the word about what we are able to do every week here on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll be back at the studio at the college come February when school opens back up. But so just get those thank yous out there real quick. But I'm just going to ask you a simple question. We don't really do the sports related draft during football season because there's so much stuff going on and we can fill the 2 hours pretty easily. But we do that during the spring and especially during the summer. What was your favorite one of this year?
I'm going to do this not to piss you off, but it'll piss you off. It has to be the best sports day of the year. Yes, I won that year. You told me I had picked a weekend.
Yes, you were picking days.
See, that was my favorite. I was because it was, as Eric and Harry would say, Rancid Randy showed up. And
no, Rancid Robert showed up in there and was bending the rules left and right. My favorite was kind of the same reason, and we brought the definition out, and it kind of was a running joke for a bit, but we did the quirkiest MLB ballparks, and the definition of quirkiness was a lot of fun to go through, and I had a lot of fun with that. Any hopes or goals for this show in 2024, sir?
You know, I want to start getting back into the swing of having our more guests on.
Yes.
It's been a tough year with stuff at the station and our schedules with everything going on, but having coaches in and players in made a lot, and I do miss that. And hats off and thank you to Mike Tatko joining us tonight. 30 minutes of Avista talk, our favorite time of the year. But you know, that's where I'm at. I really hope to get a few more of our guests back in.
Yeah, it's been our fault about not getting guests when we have home shows like this, because getting on StreamYard works so well and a lot of people are able to do it. We've been able to get Alicia on, and we've had a couple of people on, just not as many as we've hoped. We have really kind of gotten away from having the student athletes on like we've had the last couple of years. But it's been really a struggle down at the station. I don't know if they've done it in the last 2 months since we've been gone, but they've been trying to get a new soundboard in there. Only half the microphones work right now, which makes it impossible to bring in a guest down there. But I'm with you as well. The guests are always a lot of fun to talk about. We haven't been able to do our silly questions with some of the students down there in a long time. Hopefully we are able to do that. One last shout out. I saw his comment again. I didn't know if he ran after Tatko had left, but Denny Grubb dropped off a gift with Haley. Who knows when? Haley just told me that it's an unknown person dropped off a gift, and when I opened it, I'd know who it was, and he was 100% right. But Denny Grubb gave me a huge stack of Don Mattingly baseball cards, and like just going through some of them, I've had many of these in my life. I go, oh yeah, I remember this or this style of baseball card. So it was a lot of fun to go through. There's even a little booklet in here that has a bunch of Don Mattingly stuff. So shout out to Denny Grubb, who again has always been fantastic with giving out baseball cards. I still have the Seth Brown he gave us on his first guest appearance, and the Bo Mills LC one that he gave out as well. So we always appreciate when he does stuff like that, and always got to have a quick conversation as he sat down with us. I was behind Brian Danner for the 2 Walla Walla games, and he and Megan were down there for both games, and we chatted a bit. So I always appreciate his time and his efforts. And again, he is a stat man for a reason. So I very much appreciate him and what he was able to do. Eric, of course, has been a guest host several times. I have a feeling he'll be a guest host once or twice here in January, as we will have a guest host every Tuesday night for the month of January. I'm gone next week, and then Hagen is gone the next 3 weeks. I have been promised by Robert Taylor that he will be on one of those shows. I'm hoping the first one, and he could do the NFL playoff preview with me. Do not miss that show. Fireworks are going to happen, and hopefully in a really fun way. But Robert, it's been a really fun 2023 here on this show. 163 of those episodes all time, a lot of them in this calendar year. We continue to grow the show, and it's so much fun. We're right next to 700 followers. A lot of that is your connections and you spreading the word as well. And it's just been fun, doing this dream that you and I had several years ago. And we don't talk as much local sports as I think we originally planned. A lot of that is just not having the guests on like we were hoping, but 163 down, a lot more to go. And I appreciate all of the help that you've been able to do with this show.
Yeah, it's just been a great run, and it continues to grow. And you know, I'm looking forward to what happens. You know, you graduate here pretty
Yep.
soon from LC. So where does the show turn after that?
Mhm.
We don't know. We're gonna. I can't wait to see where that ride takes us. Whether that takes us to finding a new platform to go from, if it's at the home all the time. But you know, we're bringing the local sports to, and the sports that we love, to our friends and to our followers, and we couldn't be more proud of all of them. And the work that you do on a lot of this stuff is phenomenal. So thank you.
We have a lot of fun doing the show. We appreciate all the comments as well. There's been many shows that were made from the comment section where you've derailed us a few times, but usually in the correct way, and bring us to conversations we didn't even think about. So we appreciate each and every one of you as well. So we will see you in the next year. But that will do it for this R&R Sports Report. That will do it for our show here in 2023. But until 2024, that's Robert. I'm Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report, and we are